Caitlin Clark just walked away from $20 million. Not a typo. $20 million sitting on the table, and she said no thanks. Meanwhile, the WNBA can't even get a collective bargaining agreement done, and other leagues are throwing bags at her left and right. But Clark keeps declining, and now people are asking the obvious question. Why is she turning down more money than most WNBA players will see in their entire careers? The answer might surprise you. You might need to start accepting somebody's bags. You might need to start accepting somebody's pay. I don't think we should be turning down any more offers, CC. These people can't get theyself together round here. Do you think Caitlin's smart for protecting her health and brand? Or is she leaving too much money on the table? Let's break down exactly what happened. Caitlin Clark is now ranked as the 6th highest paid female athlete in the world, according to Sportico's latest rankings. She pulled in an estimated $16.1 million in total earnings. And here's the kicker. Her WNBA salary was only $119,000 of that. The rest came from endorsements: Nike, Gatorade, State Farm, Wilson, and a bunch of other massive brands. So when you look at it that way, Caitlin doesn't need basketball money. She's already rich from everything else. Seems as though she has turned down $20 million. Let's get into the article. The nearly $20 million rejection by Caitlin Clark has the WNBA buzzing. Here it says, Caitlin Clark is the lone basketball player on Sportico's latest ranking. Of the highest paid female athlete, she has climbed into the number 6 spot with an estimated $16.1 million in total earnings, a number that came despite an injury-shortened campaign. But that $20 million rejection everyone's talking about isn't from one league. It's the total of all the offers she's turned down. Project B League, Unrivaled, Ice Cube's Big Three. All of them came with massive bags, and all of them got shut down. And people are shocked because most athletes would jump at even one of those deals. But Caitlin keeps saying no. And the reason is simple. She doesn't need the money, and she values something more important: her health and her WNBA career. With that level of financial comfort, Clark finds herself in a position few young athletes ever reach. She does not need additional leagues' money, additional seasons, or additional mileage on her body to secure her future. It has become the clearest explanation for why she continues to pass on eye-catching offers from leagues eager to attach themselves to her name. Let's start with Project B League. This league launches in 2026, and they reportedly came at Caitlin with a multi-year deal worth 8 figures. That means at least $10 million, probably more. They've already signed players like Sophie Cunningham and Kelsey Mitchell, and they're building their league around big names. But Caitlin passed. She didn't even think twice about it. And that tells you everything. She's not interested in playing in multiple leagues. She's focused on one thing: being great in the WNBA. Then there's Unrivaled. This league offered Sabrina Ionescu $1 million plus equity for their inaugural season, and everyone knows they offered Caitlin even more. Probably double that. Maybe more. Unrivaled was desperate to get her. They dragged out the speculation for months, using her name to generate buzz, even though she never said yes. Eventually, Caitlin had to step in herself and shut it down. She basically told them to stop using her name for publicity. That's how annoying it got. But the point is, she could have taken that money. She didn't. Before that, Ice Cube's Big Three came at her with one of the most eye-popping offers anyone's ever seen. $5 million for 8 games. Let that sink in. $5 million for 8 games. That's over $600,000 per game. And if she committed to the full 10-week season, the number would have gone up to $15 million. That's more than she made in her entire first year in the WNBA. But again, Caitlin said no. And the reason was timing. The Big Three schedule ran directly into her first WNBA season. Joining would have meant playing 2 leagues at the same time while trying to adjust to professional basketball. She wasn't about to risk her WNBA career for a quick payday. Now, some people are saying, Caitlin's crazy for turning down all this money. They're like, girl, get the bag. You don't know when this train's going to stop. And honestly, there's some truth to that. Athletes have short careers. Injuries happen. One bad fall and everything changes. So why not cash in while you can? But here's where Caitlin's thinking differently. She's already set for life. She's making $16 million a year from endorsements alone. She doesn't need to grind her body into the ground playing year-round basketball. She can afford to be selective, and that's what separates her from most WNBA players. For most players, turning down $1 million offer is insane. That's life-changing money. But for Caitlin, it's just another deal. She's in a position most athletes never reach. She doesn't have to play basketball to make money. She makes money just by existing. Brands pay her to show up, smile, and post on Instagram. That's the reality of being Caitlin Clark. But let's talk about why the WNBA should be worried. Caitlin's loyalty to the league is admirable, but the league isn't exactly holding up their end of the bargain. The collective bargaining agreement is a mess. Players don't know what free agency is going to look like. Teams don't know how much money they'll have to spend. Coaches like Stephanie White are out here saying they're planning week by week because nobody knows when negotiations are going to shut everything down. That's chaos. And Caitlin's watching all of this unfold while other leagues are offering her stability and huge paychecks. Here's the thing. Caitlin grew up watching the WNBA. Maya Moore is her favorite player. She's always said she wants to be a WNBA legend. That's her dream. And she's willing to sacrifice money to chase that dream. But at some point, the WNBA has to meet her halfway. If they keep dragging their feet on the CBA, if they keep underpaying their biggest star, if they keep creating chaos instead of stability, Caitlin might start reconsidering those offers. And if that happens, the WNBA is cooked. Let's talk about her injury-shortened season. Caitlin only played 13 games last year. 13. Fans waited all off-season to see her play, sat through the unrivaled hype, and then got barely any games. The team kept saying she was day-to-day for months. Every week it was the same thing. She's day-to-day. She's close. She's almost back. And then, with 2 games left in the season, they finally admitted she was done for the year. Fans felt strung along. And honestly, they had every right to be frustrated. But here's where Caitlin's decision to turn down extra leagues makes sense. If she'd played an unrivaled during the off-season, she would have added even more wear and tear to her body. Maybe that injury would have been worse. Maybe she would have missed the entire WNBA season instead of just most of it. By saying no to extra basketball, she's protecting herself. And that's smart, because once your body breaks down, no amount of money can fix it. Now, let's talk about the money she's already making. $16.1 million is insane for a WNBA player. Actually, it's insane for most athletes, period. And almost all of it comes from endorsements. Nike is obviously the biggest one. They signed her to a massive deal before she even played a pro game. Gatorade jumped on board. State Farm. Wilson. Every major brand wants a piece of Caitlin Clark. And why wouldn't they? She's marketable. She's clean. She doesn't cause drama. She plays hard, shows up for fans, and represents the sport well. That's exactly what brands want. But here's where it gets interesting. Caitlin's endorsement money is so high that she literally doesn't need basketball. She could retire tomorrow and still live comfortably for the rest of her life. That's a level of financial security most athletes never reach. And it gives her power. She doesn't have to take deals she doesn't want. She doesn't have to play in leagues she doesn't believe in. She can make decisions based on what's best for her career, not what's best for her bank account. Compare that to other WNBA players. Most of them play overseas during the off-season because they need the money. The WNBA doesn't pay enough to survive on year-round. So players go to Europe, Asia, Australia, wherever they can get a contract. And that's exhausting. They're playing basketball 12 months a year with no break. Their bodies break down. Their careers get shorter. But they don't have a choice. They need the money. Caitlin doesn't have that problem. She can take the entire off-season off if she wants. She can rest, recover, train, and come back fresh for the WNBA season. That's a huge advantage, and it's probably why she's been able to stay healthy for most of her career. Well, except for last season. But even then, she made the smart decision to shut it down instead of pushing through and risking something worse. Now, let's talk about the leagues she turned down. Project B League is trying to position itself as a rival to the WNBA. They're offering massive salaries, equity stakes, and multi-year commitments. They're signing big names and building buzz. But Caitlin's not interested, and that's a problem for them. Because if you're starting a new league and you can't get the biggest name in women's basketball, what does that say about your league? Unrivaled had the same problem. They built their entire marketing campaign around the idea that they might get Caitlin Clark. They teased it for months. They let the speculation run wild. And then Caitlin had to personally step in and say, "Stop using my name. I'm not playing in your league." That's embarrassing for Unrivaled, because it shows they were using her name for publicity even though she never agreed to anything. And that's shady. Ice Cube's Big Three is a little different. They made their offer public, which was bold. $5 million for 8 games. $15 million for a full season. Those numbers are insane. But Ice Cube also knew Caitlin couldn't realistically say yes. The timing didn't work. The Big Three runs during the WNBA season. So either Caitlin plays in both leagues and destroys her body, or she picks one. And of course she picked the WNBA. But the fact that Ice Cube made the offer public was smart. It generated headlines. It got people talking. And it made the Big Three look like a serious league willing to pay top dollar. But here's the reality. None of these leagues can compete with the WNBA for Caitlin's loyalty. She doesn't care about the money. She cares about legacy. And you don't build a legacy playing in some startup league nobody's heard of. You build a legacy in the WNBA. That's where the history is. That's where the legends played. That's where Caitlin wants to be remembered. And that's why the WNBA needs to get their act together. Because right now, they're taking Caitlin's loyalty for granted. She's turning down tens of millions of dollars to play in their league, and they can't even get a CBA done. Players don't know what the roster rules are going to be. Teams don't know how much cap space they'll have. Coaches are planning week by week. That's not how you treat your biggest star. Stephanie White, the Indiana Fever coach, talked about how difficult it is being in limbo. She said they're scheduling a week in advance because they don't know when negotiations are going to shut everything down. She said it's part of the growing process of the league, but being in limbo is difficult, and honestly, that's putting it lightly. It's chaos. And Caitlin's watching all of this while other leagues are offering her stability, structure, and massive paychecks. Now, some people don't trust the Fever's front office to build around Caitlin properly. They're worried the team isn't making the right moves. They're worried about injuries. They're worried about wasted years. And those concerns are valid. Because if the Fever can't put a winning team around Caitlin, she's going to get frustrated. And if she gets frustrated, those other leagues are going to start looking a lot more appealing. But for now, Caitlin's committed. She's turning down offers left and right. She's protecting her body. She's focusing on the WNBA. And she's betting on herself. She believes she can be a WNBA legend. She believes she can win championships. She believes the league will figure itself out. And maybe she's right, but the clock's ticking. Because at some point, if the WNBA doesn't start showing her the same loyalty she's showing them, she might stop saying no. Let's also talk about the bigger picture. Caitlin's situation exposes a huge problem in women's basketball. The WNBA doesn't pay enough. Even the highest paid players make a fraction of what they could earn overseas or in other leagues. And that's why so many players are jumping to these new leagues. They're tired of being underpaid. They're tired of grinding year-round just to make ends meet. They want financial security. And leagues like Project B and Unrivaled are offering that. But Caitlin's different. She already has financial security, so she can afford to be loyal. Most players can't. And that's not their fault. That's the WNBA's fault for not paying their players what they're worth. If the league actually valued its players, there wouldn't be a need for all these rival leagues. Players would be happy to stay in the WNBA. But right now, they're not. And that's a problem the league needs to fix. Caitlin's also smart enough to know that playing year-round is a recipe for disaster. Look at what happened to other players who tried to do too much. Injuries pile up. Performance drops. Careers get cut short. Caitlin's avoiding all of that by saying no to extra leagues. She's prioritizing longevity over short-term money. And that's the right call. Because if she stays healthy, she'll make way more money in the long run. Her endorsement deals are proof of that. Caitlin Clark just walked away from $20 million to stay loyal to the WNBA. But the league better get its act together before she changes her mind. Other leagues are watching, and they're ready to pounce.